My skin used to break out and have constant dermatitis flare-ups. Now people keep telling me it's glowing. Today I'm going to break down exactly what I did and how I maintain it. Hi, my name is Sammy and today I'm going to talk to you about my skincare journey, how I went from having constant breakouts and dermatitis flare-ups to now I can't remember the last time I had a pimple, to be honest. Previously, I was getting these breakouts in these same locations on my chin, my jawline, even up as high as my cheeks, and I had no idea how to fix it. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I just needed to throw a bunch of drying stuff on it to make it go away. So eventually I made the decision to go to a skin clinic. And they actually did a skin analysis and determined that I had quite a lot of built up congestion. I always thought that once you weren't a teenager anymore, you got into your 20s, your skin would naturally clear up. How wrong I was. And I was getting very frustrated because I was in my 20s and I was still getting these teenage-esque breakouts. And I just wanted to have clear skin. It was affecting my confidence. It gave me low self-esteem. You look in the mirror, even if you've got concealer on, you can still see that it's there, and it's how it feels as well. Some of these breakouts were extremely painful, so it's not like even if you weren't looking at yourself, you still knew that it was there. So I ended up getting recommended to do some skin peels and some extractions. Extractions are where they literally pop the pimples, essentially, a bit more professionally and skillfully than you would do yourself at home, certainly better than I would do them myself, but they got in there and got all of these really old clogged pores. It was very, very intense, not a very pleasant experience, but obviously worth it. I then did a series of chemical peels. I think I did them every 4 weeks, and maybe it was about 4 to 6 peels. I think I had to go through a purge stage, which is basically where these peels were causing all of this congestion to come to the surface, which was causing breakouts as it was going out. This lasted probably a good month. It was not great at the time, but it was definitely worth it. So if you do start a routine, or if you do start exfoliating where you haven't in the past, or doing skin peels or something like that, and you find you're starting to get breakouts a bit worse than you did before, you're probably purging. Stay the course, stick it out, it will start to improve. Once I got through this purging stage, I kept up with a bit of an at-home routine. At the time, I was still learning what I was doing. I was throwing a lot of actives at my skin. I didn't know that I was supposed to kind of spread it out, and I ended up triggering a fairly bad dermatitis breakout. It was a bit later that I found out that I had perioral dermatitis. It looked like a different form of acne, so I accelerated my use of some of these harsher ingredients, so I kind of made it a lot worse. And unlike purging, it's not one of those things that gets worse before it gets better. I ended up finding out when I was going to the doctor for a different reason. I mentioned it and they said, oh, that actually looks like dermatitis. It looks like perioral dermatitis. And then there was a bit of a separate journey to figure the dermatitis stuff out. But first I'll take you through my typical daily skincare routine, which helps keep my skin clean, clear, fresh, and feeling and looking good. My routine now focuses on simplicity and consistency more than anything else. You don't need to have a complex routine, you just need to find out what works for you and lean into it. Step 1 in any good routine is, of course, a good cleanse. In the morning, I would use something that's gentle. I would use a milk or cream cleanser, possibly even a gel one. You only need something quite gentle in the morning. All you're doing is washing off some dead skin cells, maybe a little bit of sweat from overnight, no dirt, no makeup, anything like that. So it only needs to be a really gentle cleanse. I'll put a cleanser on my face dry, I'll put it on my hand, rub it on my face, and then I'll use a wet face washer to wash it off. I don't actually drown my face in water. A, it saves water. B, I find it more effective with cleansing that way. Of an evening, I'll use an oily or balm type cleanser because I typically will have makeup, SPF on, and obviously like dirt and oils from your skin throughout the day, your evening cleanser needs to work a little bit harder than your morning one. So I find an oily or balm based one works really well. You can also try doing a second cleanse using your morning cleanser. I find my skin's a bit sensitive. Again, it can be quite reactive if I'm not careful. I tried the double cleanse for a little while there and my skin was just angry a lot. And I found that it calmed down when I stopped doing that second cleanse of an evening. I do find my skin still clean enough after that first cleanse. I just don't think that I need that extra step. If you find though that your skin's not feeling super clean after that first cleanse, then dive in with your second cleanse, but just be gentle with it. So with my evening cleanse, again, I put that cleanser on my hands, warm it up first. I rub my hands together, make sure it's nice and warm before I put it on my face without water at first. Then once I've kind of loosened all the makeup and whatever off, I like to emulsify it. So I'll put just a little bit of water on my hands and then rub it on my face to emulsify, and then use a face washer or cloth to wash it off, essentially. Again, I don't drown my face in water. I find it's a bit of a waste, and then you just end up getting your hair wet and stuff as well. Once I finish my cleansing step, both morning and evening, I'll use a face mist. I just find this locks in a bit of extra hydration. In the morning, I'll spray it on and then give myself a bit of a fan. It just cools down my face, helps me wake up. I do it in the evening as well. I find it to be really refreshing, and it just seems to really lock in a bit of that natural moisture in my skin. Once I've done my face mist, I move into eye cream. Eye creams have a lot of eye area specific ingredients in them. The reason why I do this so early in my routine before I would do any other serums or anything like that is to make sure that those eye specific ingredients get straight into my eye. They're not interfered by other serums that are meant for other parts of my face. I want to make sure I'm getting the maximum bang for my buck, so to speak, with my eye cream. And I find that straight after that face mist, before I move on to any other steps, is the most optimal time to do it. Once I've done my eye cream, I move on to my treatment step, which is also my serum step in the morning. So in the morning, I typically use a hyaluronic serum in this step. The way my skin is at the moment, hydration is really my key priority when I'm doing my skincare. Hyaluronic serum makes sense to me. This is also a step where I might do a vitamin C instead, or a niacinamide serum in the morning. It really is down to whatever your priority is at the time, but currently the main one I reach for is a hyaluronic serum, and it just makes your skin feel so nice and hydrated and plump, and it's such a key step, I think, in my routine. I love my serum step. And of an evening, what I would do in this part of my routine is a chemical exfoliation. Typically, I use the Dr. Dennis Gross ones. I would only use them twice per week. Again, my skin's quite sensitive. You might be able to handle it a little bit more. If you've never done a chemical exfoliant, maybe start it only once per week. See how you go first. Don't go too hard at the start and try and do it every night. Also in this step, you might do a retinol step, which is good for anti-aging and pimples as well. I would not do it on the same night that you're doing a chemical exfoliation. Retinol is an exfoliant in itself, and it can be quite harsh and drying. If you're introducing a retinol into your routine, I would do it slowly. So in the example of like a Medicate brand, you can start at their level 1 of their crystal retinol. I would get used to that first, make sure it's not irritating your skin, then you graduate to level 3 and so on and so forth. You want to start really gentle. Quite a lot of brands that sell retinols do have a bit of a multiple tier system, and it does target multiple concerns, so it can be a really great addition to your routine. Once I finish with my treatment/serum step, I go straight into moisturiser. So in the morning, I would use a light moisturiser, nothing too heavy, and sometimes I would only really focus on areas where I tend to get a bit drier in the day, so around my nose, kind of around my mouth area. Typically the same areas where I would get a dermatitis flare-up tend to be my dry areas, and that's where I would focus my moisturiser, keeping in mind in the morning I use a hyaluronic serum, so my skin is already quite hydrated ahead of my moisturise step in my routine. Of an evening, I use currently a night-specific moisturiser, which is a little bit richer. That's my final step in my evening routine. Once moisturiser's done, that's my evening routine done in terms of skincare. In the morning, after moisturiser, I move on to SPF. I'm a huge SPF advocate. I have very fair skin and there is skin cancer that runs in the family, so it's a very high priority for me. If you find that you don't like wearing it because it doesn't sit nicely on under your makeup, it could just be either the sunscreen you're using. Maybe you need a little bit of trial and error to find one that actually works and sits nicely. Another one is making sure it actually absorbs in your skin first before moving on to your makeup step. In the morning, I always do my skincare routine first when I very first get up, and then I'll go get dressed, do a few other things while the SPF is absorbing into my skin. And then once that's all done, I'll go back and do my makeup, by which time the SPF has absorbed and my skin is a much better base for my makeup. I find if I was to do sunscreen and go straight in with foundation, my foundation will melt off by midday. I would have that problem as well. So for me, it's very important to have it absorb first, so my skin is a really good starting base for moving on to my makeup. So that's a massive tip, that if you find that your makeup isn't playing nicely with your sunscreen, give it a chance to absorb for a little while first and see if that makes a difference. In terms of what I did to improve my dermatitis flare-ups, what I did find is that when I was going really aggressive on my acne, on my pimples, I was using a lot of actives to come at it really hard, and I didn't realize that that was essentially breaking down my skin barrier, which was triggering these dermatitis flare-ups. Once I went back to basics with my skincare routine and realized what was quite irritating on my skin and what wasn't, that went a long way to helping my skin. I also stopped using toothpaste with SLS in it, sodium lauryl sulfate, I think. That is a skin irritant. The dermatitis that I was getting was around my nostrils, around my mouth, and in the middle of my chin were kind of the main areas. It would spread out a little bit, but that was the main areas that it was going. And by switching toothpaste, I did notice that makes a difference. When I've inadvertently bought a toothpaste that does have SLS in it, I've noticed that I've started to get some of that dermatitis return around my mouth and my chin. There is a very clear link in my flare-ups to SLS being in toothpaste. A third thing that I tried that made a difference for me as well was cutting out or cutting down on dairy. I'd not long started drinking coffee at the time, which is annoying because I was enjoying my milky coffees, but by switching to oat milk instead of cow's milk in my daily coffee, that made quite a big difference, especially when the dermatitis was coming up higher on my cheeks. That seemed to really pull it back down and calm down. I didn't actually technically cut out cheese, so that's why I can't really say I've cut out dairy, because I still have cheese. I tend to have coconut yogurt instead of regular yogurt. What I noticed when I did make all of these changes is gradually over time, my skin clarity improved dramatically and the texture improved dramatically. I get random compliments from strangers that my skin looks really nice. I've had compliments at work as well. And another great benefit is that my makeup started sitting a lot nicer on my skin. It lasted the day. It looked nicer, it looked a lot more natural. I tend to go for more of a natural coverage in foundation, which was a little hard when you had breakouts. I still had to go heavy on the concealer, which is something I just don't have to do anymore. So I really enjoy that aspect of having my skin clear up, and it has helped with my confidence, of course, as well. It is important to remember that these changes don't always happen overnight, particularly with the dermatitis flare-up. That took some time. It took a lot of trial and error. I hope maybe some of my suggestions cuts out some of that time for you, maybe in terms of breakouts and acne. There can be lots of different causes. If you're receiving breakouts because of congestion, then these steps will go a long way to help with that. You just need to be patient, you need to be consistent, and don't try doing everything at once. In next week's video, I'll be doing a deep dive into how I leveled up my makeup game and embraced my features rather than trying to change them. So be sure to subscribe to make sure you don't miss out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.